Our Week 12 wide receiver rankings are live. It's Thanksgiving week. Let's not waste any time. Let's dive right in. Let's kick it off with our wide receiver one for the week. That is going to be CeeDee Lamb, followed by Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Puka Nacua, Mike Evans, Tank Dell, and Michael Pittman round out our wide receiver ones for Week 12. Just to go over some of these guys and some of these situations to watch out here for. Tyreek, I just want to bring up, the Jets are allowing the fewest half PPR points per game to the position. They've allowed the third fewest receptions, the fewest yards, and just 2 receiving touchdowns to wideouts all year. All that to say, Tyreek Hill is still a top 5 option this week. The Jets have allowed some bigger games to guys like Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, and A.J. Brown. They also gave up solid days to Keenan Allen and Devontae Adams with Aiden O'Connell just 2 weeks ago. So you're plugging him in regardless. Justin Jefferson, we thought we were getting him back last week. Now it sounds like there's a chance he can miss this week as well with their Week 13 bye week coming up. And the worst part about this is how the slate is breaking up this week, right? We're already going to have 4 games out of the way, and then his game is on Monday. So this is a situation where if you have Justin Jefferson, you really have to be paying attention to it. The other situation we need to monitor is what happens with Cooper Kupp. Doesn't sound like it's a serious injury for him, but if he plays, that's obviously going to drop Puka here for us. It's going to bring Cooper Kupp up. And if Kupp ends up playing, that's going to put them both as high-end wide receiver 2s for me on the week. And lastly, just want to shout out Tank Dell as a wide receiver 1 on the week. He's been absolutely fantastic for 3 straight weeks. He obviously had some good games earlier in the season as well. But over this last 3-game stretch, he is averaging over 106 yards, a touchdown, and more than 11 targets over those past 3 games. Now he gets another strong matchup against the pass funnel Jaguars here. So you're firing him up with confidence on this one. Let's go ahead and kick it over to our wide receiver 2 rankings for Week 12, which starts off with Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, Adam Thielen, DJ Moore, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, Chris Olave, Calvin Ridley, Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel, and Christian Kirk at wide receiver 24. Let's dive into some of these plays I want to highlight here. Start off with Adam Thielen. Week 11, we saw Thielen produce his first wide receiver 2 finish since their bye week, which spanned 4 games. And while high-end production really hasn't been there for Thielen since week 6, he's still commanding an elite target share, coming in at 11th among wide receivers. He's had double-digit targets in 6 of his last 8 weeks. He has had fewer than 8 targets just once since week 1. Now against the matchup against the Titans, who are allowing the 6th most points per game to wideout. So like Thielen in this spot, Chris Olave has been one of the more frustrating wide receivers this season because his usage numbers are fantastic. Talking about someone who is 13th in targets, 7th in average depth of target among wide receivers with at least 20 targets. He's 11th in air yard share. He has 9 red zone targets. Like, there really isn't anything to not like here, except for the fact that he is 1st in unrealized air yards and 74th in target quality. Now, on the flip side of that, we did have Michael Thomas hit IR. Could mean some more opportunities for him to come up to hit one of those deep ones. And he did post back-to-back wide receiver 1 weeks before the bye. So I do think this is a strong spot for him. Michael Pittman was ranked a little bit lower for me versus Ket. That's why he was in a wide receiver 1 spot, but I have him ranked a little bit lower. He's been really steady the past 5 weeks with at least 8 catches in 4 of those, and no weeks under wide receiver 22. But we haven't really seen him pop off, but that could obviously completely flip this week. Going up against Tampa Bay, their secondary has been absolutely shredded the entire year, and now they're going to be likely without one of their starting corners, if not both. So this would be a really strong spot for Michael Pittman. Calvin Ridley finally decided to show back up, finishes the overall wide receiver 1 in the week last week, and all it took was getting Zay Jones back into the lineup, apparently. But now we have Ridley in the Jags going up to Texans in a game that is tied for the 2nd highest total on the week. And this spread is just 1.5 points, which tells you that sportsbooks are expecting this game to pop off and both of these teams to be able to hang up some points. So if it goes that way, Calvin Ridley is going to be in another strong spot here. So I think you can turn back to him. But we really haven't seen him put 2 productive back-to-back games together. So feels a little point chasey, but I think it is there. Next up, Zay Flowers. He has finished as a wide receiver 3 or better just 3 times this season, although last week should have been much better for him. Obviously, he had that 60-yard touchdown pass called back on that phantom offensive holding call. But now with Mark Andrews out for the season, Odell Beckham banged up, a matchup against a Chargers that are allowing the second most half PPR points per game to the position. This could be a strong spot to turn back to Zay Flowers, although the fantasy production has not necessarily been there. Lastly, another situation to pay attention to is DK Metcalf popped up on the Tuesday injury report with a toe injury. That is a new injury for him. It's not what he's been missing some of these practices and getting in limited practices for. So you really have to pay attention to that situation. He's currently sitting as a back end wide receiver 2 for now for me, but it does not seem good that he picked up this injury midweek. So really need to pay attention with that, especially with him being one of the Thursday games. On to our wide receiver threes for week 12. Terry McLaurin kicks off at wide receiver 25, followed by Zay Flowers, Garrett Wilson, DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, Rashee Rice, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett, Marquise Brown, Cortland Sutton, and Amari Cooper at wide receiver 36. I'll just say it for not having any teams on bye this week. This is a gross wide receiver 3 group. Don't really feel great about any of the guys in this area, but let's kick it off with Terry McLaurin. The Commanders find themselves in the highest total of the week to go along with the highest spread on the week as well. The Commanders are 11-point dogs in this one. We already know that Sam Howell is going to drop back 40 plus times. And while the matchup against the Cowboys doesn't look good, there's just a couple of things I want to point out here that could be inflating how they're looking in terms of a points per game basis against wide receivers. Week 1 was Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson week 2. They faced Josh Dobbs in week 3. In that game, we did see Marquise Brown go for over 60 yards and a score. Then it was Mac Jones, followed by the George Kittle smash week. So none of the receivers or even Christian McCaffrey really got there from a fantasy standpoint. After that, we saw Keenan Allen go for 85 and a score. Bad Matt Stafford game after that. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith combined for over 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Then it was Tommy DeVito and Bryce Young to round it out. I'm not going to go overboard and say that McLaurin is, some elite play this week, but I do think you can feel a little bit better if you have to plug him in because of that. Sam Howell has been, for fantasy purposes, a really good quarterback basically the entire year, with the exception of like 2 or 3 games. So McLaurin is okay as a wide receiver 3 flex play this week. If DK Metcalf is out, Tyler Lockett is going to bump up in that wide receiver 2 territory. Back end, though, he is dealing with that hamstring injury, and we saw his snaps really be limited in this past game. But he's going to get the matchup against Sam Fran, who we did see get lit up a little bit there a few weeks ago. And then they also are going to be without Hufanga at safety, which is certainly going to help. Lastly, for the wide receiver 3s, Chris Godwin. He's in an interesting spot going up against Indy. I think this could be a sneaky shootout as well, even though the total was a little bit lower for this game. But Godwin has been incredibly underwhelming all year. He has just 1 wide receiver 2 finish and 1 wide receiver 1 finish all year. But he does have at least 6 targets in all but 1 game this season. The 1 game where he didn't hit that came all the way back in week 3, and he had 5. We basically need him to score a touchdown and have any type of ceiling, but I do think he does fall into this wide receiver 3 flex play type of range. And then to hit on a couple of guys outside of our top 36 right now, Josh Downs in a great spot going up against the Bucs, like I talked about with Michael Pittman. Downs should be healthy, or at least healthier, coming out of the bye week as well, so you can look to him. If Justin Jefferson does indeed sit, Jordan Addison obviously gets a bump up into the wide receiver 3 discussion. If DK Metcalf is out, JSN becomes a really nice play and would slide into the wide receiver 3, back end wide receiver 2 talk for me. Rashid Shaheed is now a nice dart throw option with Michael Thomas on IR if you need a boom bust play. Speaking of boom bust plays, Gabe Davis, not targeted at all in the game last week, but now gets a matchup against Philly. This game should obviously be a lot closer than what the Bills game was last year. And the Eagles secondary is allowing the second most fantasy points per game to the position. So if you need to swing for the fences, let's say you're down a good chunk after the Thursday and Friday games, I think Gabe Davis makes a lot of sense. But as always, you have to be prepared for, the 0, 1, 2, 3 point type of games. Last but not least, Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, both these guys in good spots this week. It sounds like there's a chance that Jaden Reed could miss this game. Dontavian Wicks, who has been getting some run, is going to be out as he's in a concussion protocol. And Luke Musgrave does not look like he's going to play as well. And obviously we have Aaron Jones out A.J. Dillon might be out. So this might be a game where the Packers have to sit back and throw, and that is not necessarily a bad thing in terms of this matchup. So if you need to really dig deep, Romeo Dobbs makes sense. Christian Watson obviously hasn't been great at all this season. But if you have him, this is a spot where you could look to turn to him because of all the circumstances surrounding this game. And there you have it. That's our Week 12 wide receiver rankings video. Please hit us with a like and a sub. Any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments section below. Good luck this week, and if you celebrate Thanksgiving, hope you all have a great week with your family. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.